This is the Regent Ösel Tendzin at a seminar entitled Theory and Practice of Meditation held at Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado. This is talk number 6, August 3rd, 1978. This is an ARP digital remaster made October 2007.
Theory and Practice of Meditation, a class seminar given jointly by Vajracharya, the Venerable Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and the Regent Ösel Tendzin. Tonight, the Regent will present his 6th talk. Today's date is August 3rd, 1978, at the Naropa Institute, Summer Auditorium.
The very basic point is developing discriminating awareness, or prajna. This discriminating awareness is the essence of discipline and the foundation of the paramita practice, which we have discussed. Hearing about the paramitas, the transcendent actions of the bodhisattva, is at once uplifting and at the same time confounding, because we have certain fixed ideas. We have fixed ideas, but in this case, these fixed ideas are not our own fixed ideas, which is not to say that I am, at this point, redeeming everybody from fixed ideas. Hardly. But what we are discussing is the fact that fixed ideas are the same as the notion of oneself as a permanent entity, ego, a self. The notion of a self as a permanent and fixed identity is the result of ignorance and delusion. Trying to practice the paramitas and still holding on to that notion of oneself as a permanent entity is impossible. In order to practice the paramitas, in order to walk forward on the bodhisattva's path, there cannot be any kind of residual hope and fear, any kind of residual waiting for something to be acknowledged. There cannot be any eventual reward. Now that presents a problem to us. Using the word reward or satisfaction is not all that much of a problem, being sophisticated people as we think we are. There is no problem with those words. On the other hand, we still have some sort of hazy mind about how we as individuals could actually be bodhisattvas, how we could practice the paramitas, how we could be generous, disciplined, patient, how we could have energy, and real meditation and knowledge without having to pretend. Well, that brings us to the discussion of mind as it is. According to the Yogacara school of Buddhism, which we are basing our discussion on tonight, there is nothing but mind. Everything we do, see, touch, taste, smell, think, deliberate, strategize is nothing but a production of mind. And mind itself has two aspects: its essence and its manifestation. In its essence, mind itself has no distinguishing factors. That is to say, we cannot ascribe any condition to mind. Mind itself is unborn, unoriginated. It exists and it is permanent, which is extremely hard to swallow, shall we say, from the point of view of beginning Buddhists who are taught to recognize their whole experience as impermanent. But mind itself is pure, joyous, existent, and ongoing. I don't want to use the word eternal at this point, but I think you get the message. This is the nature of mind. At the same time, this mind, this essence of mind, has no distinguishing factors. No independent distinguishing factors. And the second aspect of mind is its manifestation. And its manifestation is basically what is called consciousness. Now, consciousness has 8 aspects. Before we describe these 8 aspects of consciousness, we should again remember that the manifestation of mind is also without substance. Now, everybody's problem is taking the manifestation of mind to be substantial. In other words, we take our projections and our process of perceiving as to be something independent of mind. Following? Well, anyway, we'll get there. But according to this particular view, the manifestation of mind itself is also empty, has no permanent self-existence. Basically what we're getting at is this: in order to practice the Bodhisattva's path, one must have a firm realization of 2 things. That is, absolute existence and relative existence. Absolute truth and relative truth. What we are to ourselves and what the world is to us. And to begin with, what we are to ourselves is nothing in itself, but at the same time, totally pure, totally ongoing, full, completely full, which is a description of emptiness. No particular characteristics whatsoever. And the manifestation, the same. What we actually get hung up with in our life is the difference between who we think we are and what happens. We have a tremendous problem with that. We have a problem with what we call the world and ourselves. So acting as a bodhisattva, as we have understood, takes generosity and patience and all the rest of it. But acting in that way takes a realization of mind as it is. So let's get back to our manifestation. Mind manifests in two ways: diluted and non-diluted. The diluted mind results from ignorance. And that ignorance is the failure to realize that mind itself is not differentiated. The failure to realize that, in ordinary terms, is what is called panic or paranoia. That paranoia or panic at the level of differentiation is without name and without form. It becomes what is called the alaya-vijnana. The Sanskrit term, Vijnana means consciousness, alaya means storehouse. Storehouse of consciousness. This particular aspect of mind, from the deluded point of view, is that which accumulates tendency. Tendency to ignore the reality of mind and create eventual entities such as ourselves, our name, our form, our life as an ego entity. This alaya-vijnana has no sense of a purpose as such. It only has a sense of fermentation. It is caused from delusion and ignorance, and it arises simultaneously with consciousness. This alaya-vijnana is the aspect of consciousness which holds any sense of future fantasies, future sense of being, from the point of view of separateness, ego-centeredness. From it there arises the possibility of cognition, thought. That alaya-vijnana is called the eighth consciousness. We're going from 8 to 1. Seventh consciousness is called the manas-vijnana, Sanskrit term, mind consciousness, which means the further tendency to begin to think and deliberate. I think it's been called subconscious in Western psychology, but I'm not quite sure if that's exactly analogous. I think in Western psychology, the alaya-vijnana would also be called subconscious or unconscious, but in any case, it doesn't matter. The point is that from a certain seed possibility, there arises movement. Movement in terms of the thought process. A thought process without direction. The direction comes in terms of what's called the mano-vijnana, or the six sense consciousnesses, which include the five senses and what is called the mind. In this case, mind being the organizer of the five senses, that which makes the appearance of the five senses continuous. We all think that we smell, hear, taste, touch, the whole thing see at the same time. We consider it as one unit. That is because of mind, or the sixth sense consciousness. This unfolding of consciousness, again, has two aspects. One which is truly empty, and one which is deluded. If one practices shamatha vipassana meditation, it is possible to work with the 8 types of consciousness in order to fully realize that tendencies to create further identifiable situations, in other words, identifiable situations are simply projection and projection, objects of mind and perceiving objects of mind. According to what we're discussing tonight, objects of mind have no reality at all in themselves, neither does the perception of objects of mind. From the deluded point of view, perception and objects of perception become real. From the enlightened point of view, perception and objects of perception are not different from mind itself. So, what happened? What happens? The failure to see things as they are results in the production of diluted consciousness, results in what is called samsara, cause and effect, continual redistribution of ancient hang-ups. How do we not do that? This is where the practice of meditation works. This is where it is necessary to understand, to discriminate between the practice of meditation and folly. The practice of meditation is the only way to be able to awaken that sense of prajna, discriminating awareness, so that one knows what? One knows that the production of consciousness is not separate from the essence of one's own mind. Sounds quite simple, but actually it's quite difficult. Because we take perception to be outside. In other words, we create I and other continually. Creating I and other is creating separation, is creating the lack of generosity, discipline, patience, energy, meditation, and knowledge. That is the actual separating factor of the transcendent actions of the Bodhisattva, is that being able to discriminate that separation as not being real in itself enables one to follow the Bodhisattva path. This is a very practical application we're talking about. Now we have understood so far that the practice of shamatha meditation is seeing the exact moment and the components of that moment. Thought process and the highlights of the thought process called emotions, bodily sensations, and environment. We have seen that we can actually look at those things directly and say, that's that. Then further we can say, we can actually understand, realize that that also exists in the sense of space, so that those things don't become things as such. Now we're talking about space not becoming a thing, or the environment not becoming a thing. Mind itself is the same as empty space. It has no origin and no distinguishing marks. It has no good and no bad. It has no confused or enlightened. When we talk about enlightenment, we are talking from the point of view of confusion. Ignorance arises with consciousness. Consciousness is no different than mind. Now then, let us look at it clearly. How to practice meditation. Why all things are workable is simply because the arising of consciousness is not separate from the essence of mind itself. I'm giving you a pretty strict Yogacara philosophy at this point. It's not exactly philosophy, but it is what happens to us. Many of you have heard that our existence, our neurosis is workable. We can actually work with it. How is that possible? If it's bad, it's bad. If there's good, there's good. How can we work with the bad and make it into good? We cannot. What is real is real. What is unreal is unreal. Neurosis is neurosis. Sanity is sanity. The point is, if you practice diligently shamatha vipassana meditation and begin to expand into the bodhisattva's way, the paramita's way, we begin to see that the mistake we made was believing in the separation between action and non-action, between absolute and relative truth. We begin to see that we do not have to believe in things as separate. This is the cause of the common cold. Mind in itself projects. That is the nature of mind. It splits into itself and its projection. Because of that split, we are shocked continually in our life, because we actually perceive something, or we think we do anyway. Truth is, we are not perceiving anything at all. We are generally perceiving our imagination of what's out there because of our fear of what's in here. The point is, what is in here has no name, is not definable, and that everybody knows. So the point is for us to extend that and understand that what develops as perception and perceived also is of the same essence. Now, when we talk about essence, let me say that I'm not trying to be anti-Buddhist about the whole thing. Essence, again, what is described as essence is unborn and unoriginated, non-substantial, with a nature like space, empty space. So that is what is called essence. You try and figure that out. So the conclusion is, in order to practice the Mahayana properly, one must understand that Mahayana practices, the paramitas, are not a matter of fabricated ideas. Absolutely not. The paramitas are not a matter of imposing something on something. Because we practice meditation, we can see that the development of consciousness comes from nothing whatsoever, and its essence is nothing whatsoever, but it appears to be all things. It appears to have shape and form. It appears to have smell, taste, and sound. This is might be called magical. On the other hand, it's quite simple. When one is freed from the delusion of thinking that mind is a something, then one is also freed from the delusion that thinking that oneself and other is also something. And therefore practicing the Bodhisattva path is without effort, is natural state of mind. If you have any questions, we could have discussion. There's a hand way in the back, left-hand side. Now it's touching hair. Now it's raising up. Now it's wiggling fingers. It seems to be a hand, but is it actually a hand?
It seems like when you form this relationship to your mind, then you begin to sort of freak people out. Like I'm thinking of Naropa Institute and how it freaks so many people out.
Well, I have no idea what you're saying. Would you start all over again?
Well, when you begin to have, when you begin to see your mind as empty, then somehow that's very hard for other people to take.
Now, how could that be? That's impossible. If you begin to see your mind as empty, then you begin to see others as empty as well.
Yeah.
How could that be hard for you to take? Or them to take?
That's my question.
Well, the question is you haven't seen your evolution of mind as empty as well. You just see the essence of mind as empty. What we're talking about tonight is how mind evolves itself. In other words, how you communicate with those people who don't see your mind as empty. You see what I mean? That's what I thought. Sorry. You have to practice a lot. You have to really get into it. It's much too glib to talk about emptiness of mind and projection, to just talk about things like other people not seeing that your mind is empty. I mean, that's completely, what can I say? I mean, we're not talking about the piddly stuff here. I'm talking about the real thing. Like that laughter, you see. Is it reflecting on you or me? Is it reflecting on the person that's laughing? Which one is real? Is it real according to my reflection, my answer, and you? Is it real according to your response? Nobody knows. Everybody's in the dark. Which, from this point of view, is no blame particularly. Just having realized that in the dark is simply a misunderstanding. Anyway, I don't think I can help you with your question about those people who don't understand. Unless you have another one. It's all right, come on, you know. She retired. Anybody else? Front row here. Seated person. Not seated. Seated. Yes.
I have a question about cultivation of states of mind. It seems that in the Mahayana, thought processes are employed deliberately, such as in Maitri Bhavana, to turn the mind towards enlightenment.
That's right.
And it seems that that only works when you see the emptiness of thoughts, and yet if you already see the emptiness of thoughts, then supposedly there's no problem anyway. So it seems very tricky.
But that's what we're exactly talking about. The one-pointed or small-sighted view is seeing the emptiness of thoughts and therefore thinking that there's no reason to do anything at all. What we're talking about tonight is that mind has two aspects. Its emptiness and its non-emptiness. Its emptiness is unthinkable, basically untalkable, undescribable. Its non-emptiness is describable in terms of non-thought. So, when you do whatever you do it out of no purpose, because it evolves itself.
Does that mean that you don't deliberately decide to try to give up territory to be generous, etc.? I'm confused about how to actually practice.
How to actually practice? Yeah, well, how to actually practice is basically to take all that you have heard in terms of paramitas and shamatha, vipassana, mahavipassana, what we've been talking about, and continue to sit. That's how to practice.
How about trying to be kind, etc., daily life?
How can you be kind? That's a good point. How can you be kind?
You're asking me?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, well then I would say is that how to be kind is to recognize that kindness in itself is a manifestation of mind. That mind in itself has no essence. Kindness in itself has no essence. Therefore there's no push to be kind. But kindness is just simply a manifestation of mind. That's what I would say, since you asked.
Thank you.
Of course, there's the bad stuff, But you asked about kindness, so. Yes. What was it?
There's the other stuff.
You mean not kind?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. How to be not kind? Is that what you're asking?
No. Well, it seems what you're saying is that there's maybe too much separation into good and bad there, and
Could be.
solidifying it.
Could be.
Okay.
Bob, front row sitting.
You said that if you practice diligently, you begin to see the mistake you made in believing in the separation between action and non-action.
That's right.
And earlier, you also described a big mistake that you make between believing in yourself and others. I and others. Seems to me there's a connection between those two sets, but I don't know what it is.
Well, I think basically action is other. Mind itself is inactive. Mind in its essence has nothing to do. This is pure Yogacara, huh? Where's Lodra? See here? Mind in itself has nothing to do. Therefore, mind does something. It begins to move.
Okay.
Yeah, begins to move. No motivation for moving, just moves. That is what happens when we begin to develop ego. That the state of equilibrium or suchness moves.
That's the beginning of the development of ego?
That's right, according to the deluded view. According to the view of mind only, it's just simply the manifestation of mind.
Right.
What we take it to be is there's something else.
Which is in the realm of action and in the realm of the world.
That's right. Becomes the world. Takes a long time, but it becomes the world.
Well,
it takes a long time in terms of steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, but basically it takes a very short time in terms of experience.
What I seem to be hearing you say tonight a lot about is the manifested mind. That there's some work to do there. And the question that occurs to me, I feel personally that I get a lot from working with my own hopes and fears, like taking them almost literally, knowing that there's a trick in them or that there's a catch to it, that I've heard that they're not real.
How do you know that?
Because I've heard it. I don't know it.
All right, okay.
And but that's like a clue. So for me, I feel there's a certain practice involved in taking a hope or a fear and really acting on it as if it were literal and watch the thing explode or fly apart or turn into empty.
Right.
Which it does if I take it literally.
Right.
But it never quite does if I act as if it were real and I don't quite do it to the hilt.
Yes.
So is there a practice in that? Is that a kind of practice that's different from sitting?
No, I don't think so. I think that if you take a sitting practice literally, shamatha practice literally, vipassana practice literally, and mahavipassana and paramita practice literally, I don't see any problem at all. That is what happens. That is what organically happens. You begin to see that the outburst of one's impulse is in itself not separate from whatever origin there is. Then I suppose if you look at the origin, you find there is none. Therefore the outburst has no origin either. Therefore there's nothing to get hung up about at all. There's no problema.
Except people start looking at you funny.
Do they?
Yeah, sometimes.
Then that means you have some problema. Because you're looking at people the way they look at you, which is called a projection of mind.
One final question is, subconscious gossip, is that connected very strongly with hope and fear?
Absolutely. that is the motivation of subconscious gossip. First you have what's called alaya-vijnana, which is just simply unformed tendency. The space behind who we are, behind who we think we are, this kind of auxiliary being of who we think we are. It's called alaya-vijnana, which is sort of almost like a Jewish mother. Eat. Es mein Kinder, es. But unfortunately, in this case, nobody's talking, right? But it's that kind of tendency.
Yeah.
Eat. Huh? Beyond that seventh sense of consciousness is beginning to nibble in terms of thoughts beginning to develop. They develop into a sense of sixth sense consciousness, mind and the five senses.
And then where is subconscious gossip?
That's 7. That's the one we're talking about, nibble.
That's nibble.
Beginning of the thinking process. The thinking process. Discursive thought, pictorial thought, all the different kinds of thought. Emotions and whatnot. Gentlemen, right in the back there with the blue and red.
I'm wondering where theory of mind or your comments tonight fit into the notion, the social realm of injustices, war, even violence.
Yeah.
Since they, if I witness a man getting beaten up, do I own that as a projection of my mind? What do I deal with these things?
You definitely own that as a projection of your mind. You definitely do that. But is that projection of your mind outside of your mind? You see, the whole point here is that man getting beaten up outside of your mind?
Well, for me, I'd have to say yes.
Well, that's what you would have to say. You see, I would have to say yes. That's basically what happens to all sentient beings. I would have to say that I must.
I see, so the projections are real.
Projections are definitely real if they are of the essence of mind. If they are not, then they are not real. See, basically projections are unreal because people think there's a split between what you see and how you see it and who you are. So they become unreal immediately. When you see somebody getting beaten up, you don't know who's getting beaten up, you or that person, or all of society, or this poor bum, or whatever it is. All those things go dig, 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 dig. Start to accumulate in your mind immediately. Very fast.
If, let's say, I jumped in and tried to prevent these, let's say, hoodlums from beating up this gentleman, would that be a confusion of my mind?
Who knows? Who knows? It might be, it might not. Depends on what you see.
So projections are not a guideline for action at all?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Projections are simply the outcome of deluded thinking. You see, one has to realize that one doesn't know. Today, I saw a letter from a poet, a supposed poet, who made a big defense, or big sort of statement about Rinpoche and Naropa Institute and the whole thing, and basically was involved with some sense of a complete delusion about social action, and encouraging all the poets of Naropa to tell the truth. Tell the truth. It's so sad. I mean, it made me really sad to think that this is what we have. On the other hand, I begin to think about this particular doctrine we're talking about tonight, and that there is actually two ways to go. There is truth, and there is delusion. According to this school we're talking about tonight, next night you might, next Thursday you might hear something else, but on this point, I would say that it is very sad to hear people talking about, let's hear the truth, when there's nothing but delusion. And the truth, you know what the truth is according to such people, is the evidence. Mike? That's good, all right.
Is that what you meant when you said in the dark is a misunderstanding?
That's right. We're talking about some sense of totality. Gentleman in the back, blue shirt.
I just want to make sure that I heard you right, and then I have a question or two. There, from the Yogacara school, at the beginning of the talk you were speaking about it, there are seeds, the seeds germinate, then suddenly things start to move.
That's right.
The things that start to move are the seeds, they turn into moving things?
That's right.
Okay. Until then, they're moving without goal, but they get goal from the sense consciousnesses, you said?
Huh?
I knew that there was a point that I lost it.
Seed.
You said that the moving seeds move with goal once there's some connection with the six consciousnesses?
No, once there's some fermentation. Ignorance is the fermentation of anything growing in terms of ego. Ego.
Okay, thank you.
Through what process do all sentient beings arrive at a consensus of what is reality?
Ah, that's great. Well, through the process of meditation. There's no other way. There's definitely no other way.
How do they arrive at a consensus of delusion?
And delusion? Well, that's also through meditation. You see, people arrive at the point where they begin to meditate simply by chance. That chance could be called disgust or frustration or hope or puffed upness or whatever. You know, a lot of people here came here to meditate. Not to meditate, but to come to Naropa Institute because it was one thing or another to them. And they somehow got involved in this particular course. Too bad. And they got meditation instruction because they went along with the whole thing. There you have it. By coincidence, everybody's sitting. Now, you could call that coincidence substantial or non-substantial. In any case, what we're talking about tonight is the essence of mind is without beginning. So when you arrive at the place where you sit down to meditate, there was no beginning of that. Everybody would like to say, well, I trace my origins back to the time when I read Meditation in Action in Kansas City, or we could say, well, listen, baby, I took LSD in New York and it was great in 1967. It was fantastic. And somebody gave me this book, Meditation in Action. It was really groovy, and I read it, But the point of departure is when you sat down. When you sat down, therefore, at that point, you made no differentiation between who you are and what you are and what you're doing. You see, that's why the whole thing is actually workable. because mind in itself has no characteristics. Therefore, when you practice meditation, what are you to achieve? Nothing whatsoever. All you are to realize that mind in itself is what it is. That's it.
That leaves me up in the air somewhere.
Well, it depends. If you practice, it leaves you down on the cushion. If it leaves you up in the air according to your thought process, then that is fine. There's no problem. What we're saying is to bring your thought process down to where you sit. And this is practical, extremely practical. Essence of mind is unborn, joyous, continuous, and without any substance whatsoever.
I'll take your word for that.
That won't do. My word for it is also without any substance whatsoever.
These 8 levels you've been talking about sound what I've learned about how the skandhas are formed. Is there any relationship?
Well, the skandhas are more complicated. Skandhas involve some sense of trying to bear down on what's happening. In this case, we're not trying to bear down on what's happening. We're trying to see that what's happening is not happening as such. So the categories are not necessarily important. What is important that we realize that in order to be in this world, there has to be the end of any kind of rejuvenation or any kind of seedlings of confusion. Those seedlings of confusion are basically weeds in the garden of the Bodhisattva's path. In order to get rid of those weeds, we never use chemicals. We just realize that weeds themselves are the same as paramitas. Sitting, blonde, and thinking.
I think I heard you say that that which is of the essence of mind is real.
That's right.
What is not of the essence of mind?
Delusion.
What is that the essence of?
It has no essence as well.
Where does it come from?
It comes from thinking that we are separate.
But isn't that of the essence of mind, to think that we are separate?
It is. You're quite right. You're the only person that had any question about what I've been saying all night. That's exactly the point. That's how it's possible to practice meditation. Do you understand?
I don't think so.
Let's go over it again. Say your question again. Let's get it straight, everybody.
You said that that which is of the essence of mind is real.
That's right.
And I asked you, what is not of the essence of mind?
I said delusion. And you said, is that not?
Is that not of the essence of mind?
I said it is. And therefore I said that is the only way we could practice meditation. This is what I've been talking about all night, ladies and gentlemen. In order to practice the path properly, one has to see that one's neurosis in reality is of the same essence of mind. You cannot practice any other way, otherwise you're becoming a theist. and a tirtika, believing in something. You see? Believing in something. When you start to see that the production of neurosis is in itself a phantom, delusion. When you begin to see that delusion itself is a phantom, then what is behind delusion? Nothing but mind itself, which is the essence of reality. This is a call to view, how to look at things, and how to practice.
Thank you.
Thank you. We finally got around to it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have to chew a lot.